Greetings, fellow gorehounds, and welcome back to a blood-splattered vlog. I'm the Horror Guru.
And I'm Count Jacula.
And today we're going to talk about Hellboy, The Crooked Man, from director Brian Taylor. This movie is a very interesting Hellboy movie because it is distinctively different from the other Hellboy movies we've seen so far.
Yeah.
For one, it's not an action movie. It is a straight-up horror movie from start to finish.
Yeah.
There are some action scenes, but this movie's emphasis is definitely not on the action.
Yeah, it's more in line with the Mike Mignola and Christopher Golden comics.
Absolutely. That's the other part that's very different about this. This movie directly adapts an actual comic book story, and that is the Crooked Man story from the comics.
Yeah, it actually is, like, extremely faithful. There are a few things that are changed in order to make it a more contained movie.
That makes sense.
You know, like some of the details about what is going on in Hellboy's past that relates to this were changed from the comic in order to make it, to make it contained, as opposed to part of like the ongoing reveal of who Hellboy is.
That makes sense. Sense. The other thing that's very different about this movie is that it's a very different portrayal of Hellboy that we've seen so far. If Ron Perlman emphasized the boy part of the Hellboy, like the childish nature of Hellboy, and David Arbor basically did his best Kurt Russell impression as Hellboy. This Hellboy is a lot more Clint Eastwood. It's a lot more man of few words, very stoic expressions all the time. And when he does wisecrack, it's very dry.
Yeah.
It's a very dry delivery. It's not as like smirky as we've seen Hellboy in the past.
Yeah. In fact, I would say that the only thing that could be said to be less than perfect about this movie is I did wish it was David Arbor.
I have to agree. This is my least favorite Hellboy portrayal so far. I didn't hate it.
No,
I thought
it's
he
not
was
my
fine.
least favorite Hellboy movie.
No.
By a damn shot.
No, this is a better Hellboy movie than the David Arbor Hellboy movie, by far.
Yeah.
But I did like David Arbor's performance a little better than this performance, unfortunately.
Yeah, as we said about the David Arbor like Hellboy movie, it is a movie where every scene is A+, but for some reason it only adds up to a C+.
Yeah, I still contend that movie would have been better as a miniseries.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. This one, however, the only thing that keeps it from being like a perfect score is the fact that I would have preferred David Arbor.
Well, yeah, it's like I have two things that really stick out with this movie. That one's the first one.
Yeah.
The second one is it's obviously way more low budget than the other two Hellboy movies, or the other three Hellboy movies, as it were.
Yeah.
And you notice that. There are points in which they're obviously cutting corners with the way they edit scenes in order to get an idea across that otherwise they probably would have shown better. And the CGI is a lot more rougher in this than it has been in the past.
Yeah. The one thing that's really interesting is that this is Hellboy in a folk horror setting.
Yes, and they do a really good job with that.
It's really good.
The writing is great, and that probably comes from being a direct adaptation of the comics.
Yes.
And the atmosphere of the movie is perfect.
Yes.
You really feel like you are descending into this Appalachian hell that Hellboy has entered. They deserve a lot of kudos for being able to pull that off on such a low budget compared to the other movies.
Yeah. It also does this thing that the Hellboy comic does a lot of, which is if you're very familiar with the Hellboy comics, you all know that there is a particular rhythm to them. And that rhythm is Hellboy is dealing with something for the BPRD and then happens upon this other fucking problem.
Yes.
That not only does he have to get over in order to complete his mission, but it entails a completely different mission on top of that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like there's a quest and a side quest.
Yeah. Like this is an extended side quest that he has to complete in order to finish the main quest.
Yeah, basically that's exactly what's going on here. There's also the characters that are specific to the story, like the Reverend. Oh, man, that character is good. He's my favorite character in this entire movie. He is the highlight of the movie for me. Every time he's on screen, especially when we get to a point in the spoiler section, well, I'll talk about what makes him truly awesome.
Yeah. Like this movie has an I kick ass for the Lord moment that is amazing.
Absolutely. My other favorite scene involves a lot of really awesome body horror. We'll also talk about that in the spoiler section.
Yeah.
When this movie does use practical effects, it usually looks a lot better than the CGI effects, and that's primarily to do with its budget.
Yeah.
I also just love how, like, unabashed this movie is about existing in Hellboy world.
Oh, 100%.
Like, at no point does the movie have to convince us it's the real world.
No, it doesn't. It just starts out and there's Hellboy.
Yeah, absolutely. It does have the unintended side effect that it feels like a sequel to a movie we never watched.
I agree.
I don't know if that's to its detriment, but it's definitely something you notice.
Yeah, but if you're familiar with who Hellboy is, even by osmosis, that's enough to get you started.
And to be clear, this is standalone. It is not connected to the other 3 Hellboy movies.
Yeah, you don't need to know anything about any of the other Hellboy movies in order to watch this one. All you have to know is that there is this guy called Hellboy. He's a demon.
Yep.
He works for the United States government for some reason.
His backstory is a little different because they're going more with the comic book origin than the origin from the Del Toro movies. Some of the stuff that's in the David Arbor movie, I'm sure is true of this Hellboy, but it's not really brought up, so.
Well, yeah, most of the stuff from the David Arbor Hellboy happens at a point in time after this story is supposed to have happened.
Oh, yeah.
Because this movie is like set in the 50s.
Yeah, it is a period piece.
Yeah. I do like the fact that the movie starts like an old 70s movie.
Yes.
Including the title card.
Yes.
Hellboy, Crooked Man. Wah!
It's
That's
like
it.
It's like you're watching The Exorcist featuring Hellboy, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Which is kind of what the Hellboy comics are.
Yeah.
It's a horror or folkloric setup, and then all of a sudden there's this guy that comes in, and that guy's Hellboy.
Which kind of makes the fact that he's more Clint Eastwood-like in this even make more sense, because he does just kind of wander into town,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. He's more of a character than the Clint Eastwood characters are.
Yeah.
Because like he has a backstory, he has a motivation.
He has more clear wants and needs.
Yes. Yeah.
And his opinions on everything are much more clearly stated.
Oh, yeah.
Because while he is a man of few words, he will let you know how he feels at any given time.
Yes, exactly.
There's a point in this movie where it almost turns into like Assault on Precinct 13, but in a church.
Yeah, yeah, and the main monster is witches, man.
Witches.
When they get into that church, it starts turning into like Assault on Church 13. They even fucking mimic the Assault on 13 music.
Oh yeah, 100%. That's the other thing. That's the other thing. The score of this movie, I love the score of this movie.
Oh, it was really good. It was a perfect, like, kind of imitation of like an Enrico Morricone soundtrack, which goes with the Clint Eastwood style portrayal.
Oh yeah, because even though it's got like all these stylizations that are horror, it's also partially a Western.
Yes. Yeah.
And the Appalachian mountain setting really gives to that.
Woo, yeah.
Also, kudos to the guy who plays the Crooked Man. That guy is creepy as fuck.
Oh, man. Dude.
That's the other thing. I love the other 3 Hellboy movies, but this one's legitimately creepy and scary.
Yeah. So if you're like, will there be Hellboy comic-like things happening in this Hellboy? Oh, yeah. Oh,
100%. 100%.
From start to fucking finish, this is a Hellboy story.
Absolutely. With that said, my fellow gorehounds, Hellboy the Crooked Man is currently available on various streaming platforms to rent. Feel free to rent it and check it out yourself. I think it's about time we move on to the spoilers.
Let's move on to spoilers.
So we can talk about some of the stuff that happens later on in the movie.
All right, so the basic idea is that this town in the Appalachian Hills that was owned by Evil Land Baron. Evil Land Baron sells his soul to the devil, and he becomes the Crooked Man.
Yeah, and over the years, people in the town have summoned the Crooked Man to, like, ask for things.
Yes.
And this has slowly, over time, corrupted the entire town. Now the town is either people who have been corrupted by the Crooked Man or witches themselves.
Yes. And there is one standout witch who can best be described as the horny witch.
Yeah. Absolutely. The one who turned one of the non-Hellboy main characters' fathers into a horse.
Into a horse, yeah.
Which is one of my favorite bits. I think I now just said 3 different things that are my favorite bits.
Yeah.
There's just a lot to like in this movie.
Yeah, because it's supposed to be like a fairy tale.
Yeah.
You know? And so, like, a lot of shit happens.
That's the thing I was super impressed with this movie by. Even though it was a lot more serious than the other 2 movies, it also did not lose the sense of humor.
No.
Like comedic quips.
Yeah.
And also stuff like at the very end of the movie when that witch is turned into the horse.
Yes.
And is wearing the sign that says, "I'm a witch, stay away."
Stay away. Which you're like, Hellboy's the one that wrote that.
Yeah, again, I keep saying everything's my favorite scene in the movie. So another favorite scene I have in this movie is when the Reverend blesses a shovel.
Oh, yeah, because they got all these witches and they got nothing against them. Like, even Hellboy's having trouble because his guns only got so many bullets.
Yep. So he blesses this shovel and turns it into a holy weapon of the Lord.
I have buried everyone in that graveyard with this here shovel. If it ain't full of God, then nothing on this earth is. And the fucking thing glows.
Yeah. I love the body horror scene when the good witch, the non-evil witch, she's returned to her body and like the body like reforms.
Yeah.
When it was just skin on the ground. That was some gnarly shit
happened.
Probably the best effect in the entire movie. Also, there's a giant fucking spider in this movie.
Oh yeah, beware, if you're arachnophobic, there is a giant spider. Remember how we said that like Hellboy is doing one thing and that gets interrupted? Well, they're delivering a giant magical spider to the PTRD when the train they're on has an accident in the Appalachian Hills, and that's how they end up in this story.
Yep. And so by the end of the movie, someone has to confront the spider on top of the Crooked Man shenanigans.
Yes. Yeah.
So there is a giant fucking spider in the third act. John Peters would be proud.
Yeah.
Going straight to the Wild West.
But unlike in Wild Wild West, like, it totally worked.
Oh, no, it makes perfect sense in this movie.
Yeah.
Now, the effect for the spider is one of the weaker effects in the movie. But it's passable.
Yeah, but it's passable.
It's serviceable.
A lot of it is done in that kind of Jaws way of, like, you only see it sometimes. Yep. It's in darkness.
The demon snake was a cool effect, too.
Yes.
I like the demon snake.
Yes, the demon snake was good.
Even though it's not an action movie, like, again, there's that assault on Precinct 13 scene in the church that is pretty action-packed.
Oh, yeah.
But it is still more of a horror movie, even with that.
Oh, yeah. It's more like a zombie siege.
Yeah.
Because they're on a church that has a graveyard.
Yeah.
And the witches fucking use necromancy to
because they initially can't walk on the grounds because it's consecrated, so they use the bodies that are already there.
Yeah. So they use the zombies to lay siege to them and, like, tear down all the crosses so they can actually come in.
Absolutely. So do you have any final thoughts on Hellboy the Crooked Man?
As a person who thought that at first Del Toro Hellboy movie was pretty much goddamn perfect, I love this one. It's probably my second favorite, even above Golden Army.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. It's like Hellboy 1, Hellboy the Crooked Man, Hellboy 2, and then the David Arbor one.
Yeah, then the David Arbor one. Yeah, which has a great portrayal of Hellboy, but is not a great movie.
It has a lot of great moments.
So many great moments.
But it doesn't really come together.
Yeah, well, like, the reason we keep harping on that is because it doesn't... How did that happen?
Yeah.
You know, any 5-minute segment of that David Arbor Hellboy movie is amazing, but when you put them all together, you just sort of like, oh, that was only okay.
It's a bit of a mess.
Yeah, very, very confusing. You know, I don't know what to say about this. This movie, consistent from start to finish.
Yeah.
Fan-fucking-tastic.
100%. Where can they find you, Count Chocula?
Well, you can find me here on YouTube, where I stream pretty much every weekday evening at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We often have guests, and we talk about things like monster VTubers, horror, obviously, Transformers, because that's the other major part of my nerddom. You know, goth life.
Y'all know me, I'm the Horror Guru. You can find me at the Horror Guru on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, Blue Sky. Just look up the Horror Guru or Blood Splattered Cinema, and I'll be there. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to ring the notification bell so you're notified of my videos immediately upon their upload. And if you'd like to help out either of us more directly, be sure to check out our Patreon pages. And remember, if you decide to go the Patreon route, even $1 a month can go a long way. And with that said, my fellow Gorehounds, I want you to comment below, and be sure to comment below using the hashtag HorseDad. Use the hashtag HorseDad. Coming to a theater near you.
Better than Ghost Dad.
Better than Ghost Dad. Better than Ghost Dad.
Horse Dad is definitely going to be better than Ghost Dad.
Absolutely.
You should give him a theme song. He's part horse. He's part dad. Horse Dad.
Nay.